Good evening, everyone. Hello, Sloohers. How are you? Paul Cox here, and this is Astronomy here at Slooh. Now then, if you're wandering around the website and you're suddenly hearing my dulcet tones, then you can click the little bug that's up at the top of the page, and you can either mute me, or if you want to watch along tonight, you can hop over to the Situation Room. I'll show you that in a sec. And you can watch there. But I wanted to just stick on this little video because somebody asked me last week, what's going on there? Well, this is the Canary Islands Observatory, and it was a good few years ago now, and this is 12 hours in the life of me, basically. And although it looks like there's more than one person there, it is actually just me, that little thing flitting around the dome. And what I did, it was when we were replacing our traditional type domes that have a slot and the whole of the dome rotates every time the telescope moves, to these ones, the ones that you actually see now in the video. These are clamshell domes. So I was actually able, it was quite a good work day that day. It was a long day, but I was actually able to dismantle the old dome, which was difficult enough because it was kind of, I hadn't been involved with the construction of that, but it had been stuck to the concrete base with some horrible tarry substance. So I actually had to chip all of that off as well. And then install these clamshell domes. And as you can see, there were 4 of these huge shutters on this dome. And you'll see it at the end of the day, it closed. And I just got it finished, as you see, as darkness fell. And my goodness, they were hefty old panels to shift around. But anyway, that's what that little intro video is about. But it's not what we're about tonight. This is about practical astronomy. So let's hop over to the home page. Now, if for any reason you can hear 2 of me, if there's a bit of echo or anything like that, chances are it's because you've got 2 tabs showing, or 2 windows showing the Slooh website. So you might be getting audio from both of those. So don't forget, if you want to watch in the Situation Room, you can watch my screen share, hop over to Livecast, up to the Space Situation Room, and there you can see my screencast here. And down at the bottom here, you can also select some of the cameras as well, so you don't actually have to leave this. In fact, let's just hop through and take a look. Oh, look at that. That's a nice one. That looks like the Trifid Nebula, maybe. Looks like it coming up in the Canary half meter. How about Canary 2? What's that show? Oh, lovely globular cluster in there. And of course, you can be watching these on the live telescope page as well. Oh, nice one of the moon. There you go. That's a pretty nice one. What have we got in the deep sky? Canary 3. There's that normal hazy blue colour that we get when the moon lights up with the Canary 3 system, but the moon won't be up for that long tonight. And there we got a close-up view of the moon. That's pretty cracking, isn't it? Woo! That's pretty nice. That's a close-up view of the Canary 4 solar system telescope. Now, if you've got any problems with the live cast tonight, or you want to ask me questions, hop over here to the left-hand navigation, hop up here to most recent, and you'll see it in the list. Here it is. So David H, I think, was saying just before the show he's looking forward to one of the things that we're going to be walking through tonight, which is looking at stellarium and how you load up comets and asteroids so that you can set up your Slooh coordinate missions. So that's going to be coming up a little bit later. Don't forget, we have also got, I'm not the only one on air tonight, we have a look at Livecast. Let's have a look, see what Helen Avery is doing tonight. Helen is a Slooh storyteller, and she's been away for a couple of weeks, but she's back tonight. And so in an hour's time, I think that is. Actually, it's in 2 hours' time. So what is she dealing with tonight? The small constellation of Delphinus. That is so nice. You know, that's one of my favourite constellations because it's one of the easiest ones to pick out in the night sky, or I always think anyway. And who have we got? We got some great mythology there. We got Poseidon, and who else we got? Arian. No, I haven't heard of Arian before. That's a new one on me. And as Helen says, who doesn't love a good dolphin tale? Well, I'm in. Hopefully, you lot hang around as well. So, anyway, listen. Tonight I wanted to just go through a couple of things because I've had some emails, and I just wanted to clear up a couple of the questions that I've been getting over the last week. And we got a couple. We got one from Gary, and we've got one from. Let's take a look. And one from Cameron. So Cameron was asking about some imaging last night. Gary's asking, well, let's take a look at it. So Gary says he's intrigued by the idea of the community telescope. He certainly can't afford a bigger scope. So many of us can't. So Slooh suits him down to the ground. But he's asking some questions here that a lot of new members get. And I would always point you towards some of the first. In fact, it's if you have a look in community, it's even listed in this particular thread. I would always recommend that you hop over. In fact, Gary's asked some questions up here as well, and he sent me an email. But have a look at these first episodes of Practical Astronomy where I step through how to use Slooh for an absolute beginner. But I do want to just answer a couple of things that Gary's asked. So he said, where is there information on what type of telescope is represented by the various telescope titles? It says Canary 1 is 50 centimeters, but what about the others? So let's take a look. And the best place to look at this is actually a page that some people overlook. There are the individual telescope pages. So if you click on telescopes up the top, most people are going straight down to a particular telescope. So if you do that, we can hop straight over to Canary 2, and there it is. Well, there's not a great deal of information about this particular telescope. Oh, that is a glorious globular cluster, isn't it? We'll take a snap of that. Thank you very much. Who set that up? Peter S. Thank you very much. You've got some basic information down here about weather conditions and stuff like that, and the all-sky camera and the mission status from last night. But there isn't any information on this particular page about the telescope itself. Well, that's where you want to go to the observatory page. So instead of clicking on one of the telescope titles, you can either click on Slooh Chile or you can click on Slooh Canary Islands. And this is where you get a page of, they look like kind of baseball cards, don't they? And what we're actually looking at here is the live view. These are not static images in here. These are actually the live views from the telescopes whenever you open up this page. So, okay, that's all well and good. We can see that, there's a Cocoon Nebula. There's a Cocoon Nebula in Canary 1, Globular Cluster M22. We've got Meshane's Galaxy there, M106. And in Canary 4, looking a bit wind-blown. We've got quite a bit of wind tonight. A wind-blown Globular Cluster M53. And, of course, the Canary 5 telescope is offline. But where is the information about the telescopes? Well, you've just got to click on this little arrow up here. And you can see when I hover over it, it comes up with a little pop-up saying telescope specification. So just click on that. And there you have absolutely every single bit of information you could possibly want, Gary. All of the spec of the actual telescope in the top half. Then you've got loads of information about the CCD camera, the size of the field of view, all sorts of info regarding the equipment there. Even tells you what kind of filters are installed on each system. Tells you here things like this is information about the actual live view itself. So it tells you the image scale. It tells you that north is up. We always align all of our telescopes and cameras so that north is up on all of our telescope setups. And then you can see here that we've got the field of view. It gives you the resolutions there as well. We can hop down, scroll down a little bit more. On this particular system, we've got the second telescopes. We've got the ultra-wide field telescope that's looking at the same thing. So on any of our telescope systems that have two telescopes, which is normally a larger telescope, and then usually a smaller refractor on top to give an ultra-wide view, they always look at the same thing because they're mounted on the same telescope mount, but they give you a very different field of view. But there is all of that other information for that telescope. But then down the bottom as well, it gives you all of the information about the actual observatory location as well. And you can click on any of the telescopes, and it's got exactly the same type of information on each telescope. I think we've even got it here for the solar telescope as well. So, Gary, that answers your first point, I think. There's just about every single bit of information you would like about that. As an apprentice, right, this is something that some members get when they're new. They don't fully understand what the difference is between an apprentice membership and an astronomer membership. Well, an apprentice membership includes 5 missions every 30 days. And when 30 days have passed from each of the missions that you previously set up, that gets returned to your quota. So you can set up a new mission 30 days after your first mission ran. But you can also, of course, be piggybacking, yeah, that's it. Sorry, sound a bit weird tonight. Piggybacking. You can also piggyback other people's missions, and of course, all of our members can go to any of the live telescope pages. Let's hop over to Canary 1, see what's there. They can watch live missions. And what have we got coming up here? We've got another globular cluster. Let's have a hop over. That's quite a sweet one. Let's have a look at Canary 2. What's going there? That's another lovely loads of globular clusters. This is good stuff, actually. You lot are paying attention, because when there's moonlight, you want to try and image as many brighter objects as possible, planets, globular clusters, even open clusters, because with the moonlight makes the images very noisy. And that doesn't affect these bright objects so much, but it does affect fainter objects like galaxies and nebulae. But what I was saying is that obviously, whatever your membership, whenever the month is, there is no limit to the number of images you can snap, just like that. And that image now has gone straight to my pictures and is safely stored there for me. So let me have a quick look back at Gary's question there. So, right, if a mission doesn't run, then that doesn't count towards your quota. But let's hop over to that Canary 4, because Canary 4 was windblown tonight. Actually, we've hopped over to a waxing gibbous moon now. Let's just go to the full view on that one. That's looking pretty nice. Take a snap of that as well. If your mission runs and it's been wind affected, so it maybe was blown a little bit, then that will still count against your quota. So if a mission runs, unless anything technically has gone wrong with it, then it won't. It will count towards your quota. So that answers your other question there. Yeah, I mean, Gary's saying he finds the website really uninformative. And I think our challenge here, Gary, with Slooh, is there is so much information that members kind of need to know over a period of time that we cannot put it all front and center. Otherwise, it's so overwhelming. So you do have to know where to go and look for some stuff. And that's why we do these shows. So if you look back at all of the other shows I've done, we've walked through absolutely every single one of these navigation options, all areas of the website. So all we always say, and other members are always quick to chime in on this as well, take your time. This is not a race. There's lots to learn about astronomy, and there's lots to learn about using online telescopes. Hopefully, it is as easy as hopping over to one of the live telescope pages, and lots of members find this very easy. So here we've got a lovely galaxy, that's a black eye galaxy. See, here we've got a satellite streak through it. You can snap an image. So where does your image land up? Well, if you go through those early videos, you'll know that they go to My Pictures. But if we put a link to all of these different areas, it would be so overwhelming. People wouldn't get past day one, would they? So you can always, if you do want shortcuts, there are quite a few shortcuts, down at the bottom of the page in the footer if you want. By the way, if you ever want to contact Slooh, Then if you just click over to the terms of service, then the customer service and the support email addresses are in there, and you can reach that from any of the page's terms and conditions. So there are your images, and you're asking, is there somewhere that you can monitor the weather? Well, yeah, once again, we covered that in one of the early practical astronomy live casts. So if you hop onto any of the telescope pages, even when it's offline, you scroll down the page and you see the information panel. So the first tab is you've got the day and night bar, the second one, and this tells you when things are going to start up, when things are going to close down, when full darkness comes. You really don't want to be scheduling faint objects during the first half an hour, first half an hour or last half an hour of the night, because the sky starts brightening. But you can then go to the day-night map to get a visual representation of what's going on. So there's the Canary Islands Observatory in darkness. Chile is just entering twilight now. But here we go with the weather. The weather has 4 tabs. First of all, you've got the weather forecast. Then you can see the current conditions. So these are live, coming in straight from the weather stations at the observatory. You can see the current weather, satellite view, and then each morning you can check up here on mission status, and you'll see a report of the previous night. So on here for last night, we had light to moderate haze and moonlight and occasional high winds. So you know that those 3 factors could have affected image quality. So if you see anything odd, if you see streaked stars, then chances are it was a high wind gust blew the telescope. If you got a lot of noise, it may have been due to moonlight, may have been that the object was far down on the horizon. So it was affected by that light to moderate haze. Then we go down and we tell you which telescope system was online or offline, and we give you the reason if it's offline. Then we've got any special notices. So here we've got Canary 1, Bright Galaxy or Comet missions. So those are missions that use that particular processing option were affected by a processing issue, but the underlying data was good. So the live images were affected, but the data that you get wasn't. And then there's always a note about whether the Canary 5 was on there. But then you can check the live sky conditions as well, Gary. So just hop over to the all sky camera, and here you can see that's the moon. So if you're not familiar with this particular view, it's a fisheye view, which means the horizon is kind of spread out around the outside of the image. But these white things over here, well, those are the 2 domes. The third one actually is in the foreground, so you can't see it. But this one here with the orange light that I'm pointing to on the screen, that's the Canary half-meter telescope. And you can see how bright, the sky is with that moonlight. And that's what makes our images noisy under moonlight. You can see over here, that's Canary 3 and Canary 4 telescopes over in the far distance. And then just up here where it says heater on, that's where the Canary 2 telescopes are. You can also check the conditions from the previous night. So if you come to this page and you've checked out the mission status report here, you can also check the sky conditions at the time of your mission by going over to the time-lapse page. And this gives you a time-lapse of the all sky, and that was actually last night. So we hop along a bit. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? Did you just see the look at the streak? So this is this morning, just before dawn. That streak is the International Space Station whizzing through the sky with Mars over there just setting. But if we hop over, we can see that's daytime. And look, this is a telltale. Look at this. This is when we say there's light to moderate haze. You can see it in the animation, but you can't see it in a single frame. And that's the same at night as well. You can just see the whole sky is quivering. So there we go to sunset. And this is updated every hour. So there's the moon. We've got Jupiter there as well. And you can see it stopped there because it hasn't updated yet for the next hour. You can also, during the daytime, look at the dome cam. So this normally gives you the view of both of the domes in the daytime. You can also see the time lapse. So if we look at the time lapse for this, we can see, that's running very quick because, of course, it's only been running this evening. So it stopped running this evening and is only using the last few images. Then you've got the Teide. This is actually, it should be called the Pico del Teide cam. And there we can see the moon over there. Yeah, that is the date. And then this is 10,000 feet looking down on the observatory site, and the observatory is just where I'm pointing down here on there. So there you go, Gary. There's loads of places where you can check out not only the live weather conditions, but you can also look at the conditions from the previous night as well. Yep, and you're asking for a written guide as well. We are in the process of, on our version 4 website, because this is our beta at the moment, our version 4 website, when it launches, has got a whole stack of video guides, as well as some written guides as well. So you'll have everything you need, but of course by then you won't need them, because you'll see the practical astronomy webcasts, and you'll be an old hand by then, Gary, so don't worry about that. Then Gary is just asking, is this where he should be putting questions? Yes, it is. You can always feel free to write questions to support@slooh.com if you've got any problems, can't find anything, and we'll either point you in the right direction, or we'll answer your question. So got another one here. This is from Cameron. So we're going to whiz through this, and then we're going to move on to Stellarium. Cameron emailed last night, and so this is at the end of the night, and his first question was, there are no FITS image download links. So for members out there who don't know what FITS data is, FITS is the raw data that comes from the CCD cameras. So the live images that we're watching now, these are processed, it's the FITS data processed in real time and then spewed out to the image stream, which is what we see in these telescope views. Now, you don't get the FITS data immediately. Let's take a quick snap of this. And so I'm just going to take a snap of that mission, and then I'm going to hop over to my pictures, and we can see where this picture lands up. So you can see that this is immediate. So that image has come straight to me. So there we are, 2220. So there is the image, looking pretty cool. And so we've got that straight away, but there's no FITS button. So if we hop over to missions, and you can see here on my missions last night, there's a blue FITS button. Well, that's because the FITS data isn't uploaded to the servers until the end of operation. So when the domes close, the first thing that happens is what's called the FITS queue data is processed, and that's basically uploading all of the data from the previous night, and it starts in chronological order. So the first missions of the night, they're the first ones to have their FITS data uploaded. And when it is available, then that little blue button. So if I had looked first thing this morning when I got up, these would not have had their little FITS blue buttons on there. But later on in the day, it's normally about 4 or 5 hours, depends on which telescope usually. But that FITS button appears, and there is all of the raw data for that particular image. So there you go, Cameron, that asks your first one. Now, this is a really good point. Now, Cameron said, he's asked a question, a couple of deep sky Slooh 500 missions returned only luminance images, so only grayscale images. Well, unfortunately, Cameron, I need more information to be able to do anything about that. Because there's over 100 missions, well over 100 missions. Sometimes if both observatories are online, we can land up with 300 over each night. So whenever you've got a query about your mission or about your image, then always tell support which telescope, what time, what the object was, and what the problem was. And then we can answer that properly. Some images had a light grey band down the left-hand side. So once again, I can't answer what that was, but if you point me in the right direction, I can take a look at that, and I can usually tell you fairly quickly and easily what the issue may have been. And two of the images returned for the Trifid Nebula were actually of the Lagoon Nebula. Now, that's an odd one. That there was an odd little problem last night, and it happened one night the previous week as well, where for some reason the previous mission didn't close down properly. So it actually started combining images from two of the missions. So we are still investigating why that's happening. We believe it happens when there's a network glitch, but because we don't usually encounter network glitches at the Canary Islands. This is something new to us, so we are still investigating that. And I think I said last week that I've got a whole pile of brand new spanking equipment sitting right by me here, ready to go over to the Canary Islands for our pre-winter maintenance trip, where we've got lots of improvements to make, and of course we'll also be cleaning all the telescopes as well, which always helps us out. So let's have a quick look, see if Cameron's got any other questions here. Yeah, I was talking about no, this was another question, actually. I had another question. I don't know where it was from. Not from Cameron. It was somebody asking, why can't I schedule the Canary 5 telescope? Well, you can't schedule the Canary 5 telescope because that's fully under Slooh's control. So this is the solar telescope. And what it's doing during the day is it's always looking at the same object. Hence, you can't schedule it, because you can't schedule it to, well, not unless you're a believer in the second sun, of course. You could Slooh it to the second sun, but let's not go there. But because it's always looking at the sun and it's the same field of view, it's wherever we're pointing on the sun, then that's why you can't schedule for it. So let's take a look at some of my images from today. Oh yeah, that was a lovely, lovely prominence there. So during these missions, the only thing, during the solar telescope, the only thing you can do is to snap an image of whatever's showing in the live video stream. So hence why you can't do that. And Cameron has got one last question here, and it's about T5, but I think you really mean Canary 4, which has the closer field of view. And there was some movement during the exposure. And he's saying, is that because I should have used T1 and T2, or is it the result of wind? It was the result of wind. Hence the nightly report. Always hop over here in the morning. It's probably a good idea, actually, if you check this before you look at your images, really, because then you'll know the kind of things. But here we go, light to moderate haze, moonlight, and occasional high winds. So you can normally start pinning down. But once again, going back on Gary's point, oh, look at the colour in that. That's glorious. Superb colour. Pure white stars there, which means, we know that the colour balance is correct. All these golden stars. We've got some blue ones in there as well. A couple of really dark blue ones down here. That's glorious. Very, very nice. M56, Messier 56. So anyway, hopefully I've answered most of those questions from Gary and Cameron. Let's just hop over to community, and we'll see because I think there were a couple of others in here as well under the show post. So those are Gary's here. As to cause missions fail. Well, many things cause a mission to fail. If once the telescope's up and running, it's up and running. We don't have many technical failures, Gary. And Jay's written there anyway. David's popped in there that doesn't make them fail, but some things can affect images like weather, clouds, high winds, dust storms, haze from the Sahara, blah blah blah. Hopefully we've answered your other queries, and we've given you some links there, Gary, to some of the previous live casts. And then Carol is saying, Stellarium, I sometimes struggle with configuration, the solar system editor, and that's what we use to look at comets and asteroids. I would appreciate if you would guide us through this. And yes, I have said I'm going to deal with it. And David H. has fired up, hopefully, Stellarium so he can follow along. But just before we do that, because it is totally related to this, is hopefully you've been following a couple of posts in the discussion boards about this comet see 2017 S3 Pan-STARRS. Now, Bernd, one of our greatest comet hunter members, was the first to report this when he captured the comet in an outburst. Now, an outburst is, comets they're not static objects. So they're made up of volatile ices. They're fairly loose conglomerates of ices and dust and rock, all manner of things. It's kind of solar debris, really. It's kind of the debris left behind after the solar system formed. But it doesn't take a great deal to upset a comet. But this comet is heading for a close encounter with the sun. So it's heading towards perihelion next month. And the gravitational pull the effect of the sun, as well as it passing planets like Earth, can disturb the comet structure, which can expose or fracture new volatile materials to solar radiation. And that can then cause these outbursts. And these outbursts are basically this outgassing. It's called sublimation, where those ices don't turn to liquid, so it's not melting the ice. It's turning the ice directly into gas, to water vapor. And that process can be quite violent. So, I don't think we really think it's a bit like Armageddon, with huge jets coming out, but who knows? There could be. In fact, I think we have seen a couple of comets where they have thought that they've seen that, but we haven't really seen it up close. But anyway, what happens is when that is taking place, it can be fairly violent, and that takes dust and debris with it as well. And that forms what's called the coma around the comet nucleus. So the nucleus is the volatile ices and the dust all packed together. It's what people used to refer to as a dirty snowball. But that's a tiny, tiny element in our images. In fact, we can't even see it. I mean, they're fairly large, they can be tens of miles across. But the coma is all of that outgassing. It's all of that water vapor. It's the volatiles. It's the dust that's been thrown off by these processes. And then, of course, the tails are generated by, first of all, you land up with the debris trail of dust, which normally follows or trails the comet's direction. But then you also have what's called the ion tail. And this is where this always points directly away from the sun, because it's the solar wind, it's the radiation from the sun, which is exciting some of that gas which has been thrown off by the comet. And it excites it. It ionizes those gases and also pushes them. Literally, the solar wind is pushing them in a certain direction. So this particular comet, though, Byrne first of all noticed that it was in an outburst. So members jumped on this really quickly, and we had some fabulous processing. This one is from Byrne himself, actually, showing its tail during this outburst. But I think Byrne made an update today. It's got some beautiful color images in here. There's one there from Juan Pablo. Great images there. This one, some the Canary 2 telescope there. But I think Byrne updated this today, and he's saying, yeah, the comet has suddenly subdued. In fact, that was yesterday, but it has subdued rather, getting a lot fainter. But the thing is with this comet is we think these little volatile happenings been happening kind of more and more regularly. And it may be the precursor to this comet disintegrating, just like Comet Ison did a few years ago. And Comet Ison was the one that had this huge observing campaign. And in fact, Slooh members were part of this pro-am collaboration, a collaboration between professional astronomers and amateur astronomers. And they collected with the Slooh telescopes more data of Comet Ison than any other observatory in the world, ground-based observatory in the world. And it was an amazing thing. And we were expecting this comet to come out from perihelion, which is its closest approach to Earth. And when it came out the other side of the sun, we were expecting to see it, but there was nothing. And then some very, very powerful, I think it was the space telescopes had to do this. They spotted what could have been a couple of chunks that may have been left after that loose conglomeration of ices and dust was torn apart, basically, as it was slingshot around the sun. So what we are possibly believing is that this might happen to this comet as well. So we are going to keep a very close eye on it. And there's another post here, and it's about special missions that we're setting up. So every night, there are so many members who want to follow this. They don't have enough missions, but loads of people want to watch it. So we have scheduled special missions for this using the Canary 1 telescope, because sometimes the Canary 1 telescope can be affected by wind, and we've got some wind forecast for this week. So we thought, okay, we'll set up the missions for Canary 1 this week, which means, okay, members won't lose anything. They won't lose their missions or time or quota or anything like that if the Canary 1 has to close because of high winds. So don't forget, you can piggyback on those, and we've done those all week. And the way you can go and see that is you can hop over to the scheduled telescope pages, hop over to Buy Telescope if you're an astronomer member, and we can hop forward on any of the days here of this week. And what you'll see, this particular comet is only visible just before dawn, and that's what we're about to move on to with Stellarium. But down here you can see we've scheduled 5 missions, because this comet is only visible in the last hour or so, really the last 3/4 of an hour of the night, using Canary 1 and Canary 2 telescopes. We have also got it scheduled on the Canary 3 telescopes. Don't think I've done that far ahead yet. No, I think I've done tonight on Canary 3. And don't forget, of course, you can piggyback on any of these missions. So it's visible. What we're doing is we're scheduling the Canary 3 telescope, one, because it's one of the most underutilized telescopes, so we're not taking slots there that a lot of members want to grab, but it also gives you the ability to piggyback on those as well. But also the Canary 3 system has a far lower horizon limit. In other words, it can point far lower to the horizon. And that's exactly where this comet is. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse, so that by the end of the month, actually only Canary 3, Canary 1 and 2 will not be able to see the comet by the end of the month. But how do we know that? How do you set up one of these missions? So you can see here, this top mission here, you can see I've set it up, and it says celestial coordinates, RA, that stands for right ascension and declination. That's the equivalent of latitude and longitude on the terrestrial sphere, but it's on the celestial sphere instead. And you can see there are 2 lots of coordinates there in decimal places. Then in brackets, we've got what the object is, Comet C 2017, S3 Pan-STARRS. So how did I establish that those were the coordinates that we needed for this particular comet? Well, the first thing to remember, and I think let's hop over to Stellarium now. So just need to switch over my screens a second. Right, so here we've got Stellarium open already. And what we can see here is a depiction of the sky over the Canary Islands, because if you're using this, you would have probably gone to the posts in the discussion boards, which show you not only how to install Stellarium, but also, and Stellarium is let's start at the beginning. Stellarium is a planetarium software. It gives you a virtual sky. So this is a depiction of the sky, and you have to set the location for it to be accurate, and you have to set the time to be accurate. And in the discussion board, so this is free, this software. In the discussion boards, I put a couple of little posts in there which tell you where you can download it, how you install it. But then I've also added some custom configuration files for it, which have the Slooh observatories, their locations in, and all of the Slooh telescopes, so you can check out their fields of view. But let's go through, assuming you've done all of that, then let's go through the first few things that you need to check. Well, the first thing, although it's saying it down here, Slooh Canary Islands Observatory, I do always like to just check, have I got the planetarium software? And this is a good habit to get into, actually, because a lot of other programs don't show it to you so prominently. Have I set the location properly? And we do that, if you remember, using this top icon over here. And if you've loaded up the configuration files, there was one question in the discussion boards. How do you find the Slooh observatories? Because there's an awful lot of observatories and locations marked in here. Well, in this little search box, all you've got to do is type Slooh, and bang. The only two options that are up here are the Slooh Canary Islands Observatory and the Slooh Chile Observatory. You can see as I click each one, the arrow changes to show you where our location is. And you can see there that Chile, the sun's only just setting there. So it's giving us this live depiction of the sky as we look. So there's Slooh Canary Islands, and that's the one that we want. So we know we're set up okay. So that's okay. Now then, time. Time is another one. I'm not going to be setting up. I don't want to know where this comet is right now. Let's suppose I'm planning a mission, and we know that this comet is only visible in the last, let's say, half an hour. So let's say that we want to set up a mission for tomorrow morning, so at the end of missions, at 0500 UTC. And once again, if you've copied the configuration files that I put in the discussion boards, this will be configured, Stellarium will be configured for UTC, which is the same time zone that astronomers around the world use, and it's also what the scheduling system uses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop in here. I'm going to put 5 in there, and I'm going to hop over there. You can see, bang, it's bright then. But we said 0. Oh, just want 0 in there. Can I get the 0 in there? Please let me just put 0 in there. Right, okay, I'll use a little arrow instead. And then that can click. In fact, I'm just going to pause it there because I don't want the time to be clicking on. Can I just put 0, please? Yeah, there you go. Now, some of you out there will be screaming at me right now. You'll be saying, yes, but Paul, that was this morning. Yes, because I haven't incremented the date yet. Of course, tomorrow morning is actually going to be the 23rd. So we've got now the location set for the Canary Islands Observatory. Tick. We've now got the date set. Tick. We've got the time set. Tick. So I am going to keep that on screen just to make sure that we're okay. So where is the pesky comet? Well, we know it's rising, don't we, in the east before dawn. But I don't know about you, but I don't see a comet there. So how do you load a comet? And this is, I've had a lot of people ask me this in different ways, and you saw Carol there has been asking this week. Well, it's really unintuitive, this one, and don't forget, we've kind of, Stellarium is not the best planetarium software out there, but it's the one that is most standardized, and more importantly for us here, it's free, because we know a lot of members can't fork out even $50, let alone $350, which is what some planetarium software costs. So it's the cost of an annual membership, which is absolutely crazy, especially if you're not controlling your own telescopes or anything else like that. So there are parts of Stellarium that are not that intuitive, but you just need to live with them. Basically, if you want a free option, live with them. There are some other free alternatives as well, but we decided, there's so much in Slooh where we're doing shows, or we're doing live casts, or Paige is doing her astronomy course. So many times when we use a planetarium software, it's a pity not to use one which we know any members could use. Because the other important aspect of Stellarium is that it's available for Windows, Macs,
or Linux. All right, so you're fine. Whatever kind of computer you've got, you can use this. And of course, there are apps as well, mobile apps as well. So anyway, we want to load up a comet here because the comet's not there. We can't see it at the moment. So how do you do it? Well, the reason why it's not that intuitive is because it's in the plugins. And the plugins, if you remember, are under the configuration window. You can press F2 as well if you want. And so you think, really, I want to load up a comet. I don't want to change the configuration of the program. But anyway, you can see down here right at the end. By the way, we did flick through these. The first week on the first week we covered Stellarium, we stepped through all of these. So you can go back to that. But as I say, all of the configuration is in those configuration files we made available. So this is where we want to be then, plugins. So this is where other people can write kind of add-ons to the Stellarium program. And the one that we're interested here is Solar System Editor. Handily, it appears at the bottom here. So, okay, well, we're on that, and we've got an option down here saying load at startup. But, even now you might be thinking, well, yeah, not that intuitive. Why haven't I got anything I can do in here? Well, there is only one option for us, and it's this configuration button. So if we press that, we get a second box coming up, and we've got 3 tabs here. Now, you can make some changes here, and in fact, I did test this with a Comet file earlier on today, which I downloaded from the Minor Planet Center. But for us, what I found is if you do anything about loading asteroids or comets in Stellarium, if you do it en masse with a huge number, you basically need to walk away from the machine after you press the button, make yourself a cup of tea or coffee, or maybe pour a glass of wine, and then come back to it, and they will have loaded. So for our purpose, we're really only interested in this single comet. And on there, we can go straight to this Solar System tab, and there you can see, actually, I've already got C2017 S3 Pan-STARRS loaded. We didn't do a search for it. So let's pretend that, there you go, I now no longer have any comets loaded at all in the program. And what we can say here is we then need to press another button, which will open up yet another box. And here we go. So you can go to lists. So you could select comets. And actually, this is where I loaded up the file. You can go directly to MPC's list of observable comets, which is something you can do. I'm not going to do it that way because it can take some time, but that would load all observable comets at the moment that are logged at the MPC. Do beware, though, that their magnitude limits, they might not be visible. But we want actually this tab right at the end. So we went to, as a reminder, we went to we went to configuration window, which was F2, which opened this window. We went to the plugins tab, selected the Solar System Editor, pressed the configure button, which opened up this dialog box. We went to the Solar System tab. We pressed import orbital elements from the MPC and opened up this box. Went to online search, and all we've got to do in here is start typing. So we know that this particular comet is it's not a periodic comet, so it starts with C / 2000. Sorry, yeah, that was right. 2017 S3. Now we should be able to get away with just that if we press search now. Let's try it. And there it is. So you quite often don't have to put in the name of the comet. And don't forget, with comet names, what's in brackets is the discoverer. So anyway, there it goes. You need to select it. So just tick it. And it says here, you can overwrite existing objects. And actually we will, because we did have one loaded. And don't forget, you see that comet and asteroid orbits can change. And that's why the A-team the group of Slooh members who monitor and track asteroids and comets. It's why they make submissions of their measurements from their Slooh images of the comet and asteroid's position, because that then feeds into the Minor Planet Center database, which helps to compute a more precise orbit for those objects. And it's the result of that that actually we then all download. So there's this lovely little cycle, this little loop going on here at Slooh, that we've got a group of members who track these things, make measurements of them, submit it to the MPC computers then determine their orbits better, which are then made available to the worldwide community so that they can do exactly what we've done here. So there we go, C2003, add object, thank you very much. And we can close that box down, and we can see on this previous one, there it is loaded, great, we can close that down, and we no longer need this one, so we don't need that. So let's do our search window. I've already got it there in the search bar. I can press search, there it is. So it's still not showing us that. So what we can do is we can zoom in on this. I'm not on my right machine for this. No, wrong button. Hold on one second. Right, hold on one second. I'm having to do something weird on here. In fact, there was a far better way I could have done that for you. Do excuse me, I've now got to fight this, get it on the right screen. Oh, it hasn't gone to the right screen, it's gone to the opposite screen. Here we go. Sorry, I'm dealing with all sorts of tech tonight. So there we are, we've zoomed in a little bit more on the comet. And you can see up here, in fact, let's just move our time thing. We can see up here that it's giving us the coordinates that we need for that particular comet. So we can see here it's right ascension 83 and declination 52. Let me see if that was accords with what we've got here. Hold on one second, folks. Lock. No, it's not. I wonder why not. Oh, did I change something? I changed the... No, that's all. Yeah, I think that is correct, actually. So forgive me, I will check this afterwards, but everything should be fine. So that should have given us the coordinates that we need for the reservation system. If there's not, I'll check this after the live cast. Let me just try something else. Do excuse me one moment. Talk amongst yourselves, Slooh members. Don't forget, while I'm doing something else, you can hop up here and you can see the Slooh field of views that we've got configured in Stellarium. So let me just do something here. 3, 5, 6, 2017. Okay, so there is something wrong with the configuration of that. It is showing the correct declination, but the right ascension, I must have changed something in my configuration. It's not showing hours, it's showing degrees, and we actually need hours, minutes, and seconds. So if there's something wrong with the configuration files, we'll change that, but it may be something that I've just messed up tonight while we've been hopping around the screen. So anyway, but that's how you do it. So loading up the comets is exactly as we've said. If you've got, let's just want to show you another way, because it might be an asteroid that you want, and a good way of looking up interesting asteroids to use for the Slooh telescopes is to look at this page. This is the NEO Earth Close Approaches, and this shows any of the close approaches over the coming 7 days or so. In fact, this is going out even further than that at the moment because there obviously aren't that many. But over here, you can see that up here, we've got one here that's meant to be, well, that's quite a long way away, but no, you know, this one here, down here on the 29th of August, 1998, SD9, that's going to be at 4 lunar distances away. So that would be quite an interesting object to do. So let's just take a look at this. I'm just going to move that onto another screen so I can see it on there. So let's go back to Stellarium. We'll go back to our configuration window, solar system editor, configure. Yes, we've got that. Import. Yep, we want to do a search, and it was 1998 SD9. So we can do a search on that. And there you can see it's hopped up. So we tick that, we say add that object. We've now got that object loaded into Stellarium as well. And those objects will stay loaded the second time. So we could now do a search, and there, actually that's cool. That is cool. That has loaded the last object we've kind of done anything about. That's quite good, isn't it? I hadn't noticed that before. Do a search on that, and it whizzes over to where that was. And actually, we can see here it is below the horizon, which is why we can't see it. But of course, we'd want to set the date for that particular close approach to see if it was visible. Then let's hop over to our comment. So there you go. That is how you get the coordinates. I will check to see why Stellarium is showing right ascension in degrees when it should be showing that in hours, minutes, and seconds. And I'll sort that out for you. But that's the general thing. The other question that we had in Stellarium were these viewpoints. And somebody, I think, had done something like this. Yeah. So they'd said, oh, yeah, but I've selected so-and-so telescope, but it's showing the wrong field of view. So here we go. We've got the Canary 4 solar system telescope selected, but we know that's a rectangular field of view and quite a small field of view. But it's still showing us this red box here. Well, don't forget, unfortunately, Stellarium, you have to select both the telescope and the CCD camera to match. So you need to, and what I did on the configuration files is that they're the same number in. So telescope number 4 is Canary 4 solar system, and then the sensor for that, the CCD camera, is also number 4, which is the Canary 4. And there you can see it's now got the correct field of view. If we hop forward, I think we can go through Chile, and then Canary 1, and then we need to select the Canary 1 telescope as well, and then that gives us not only the correct box, but it gives us the correct image scale down here, and it gives us the correct field of view and all that kind of malarkey. So hopefully we've answered actually quite a few queries tonight, haven't we? We will sort out that pesky right ascension issue though. But let's take a quick look in discussions, see if we've got any last minute questions. Don't forget, folks, if no, we haven't got any last minute questions. Don't forget, if you have got any subjects that you would like me to deal with in practical astronomy, then let me know. You can always email me at paul@slooh.com, or you can post to the practical astronomy discussion board in here, just with an idea of what to do. We are trying to keep these so at least a big chunk of each live cast is for beginners. We have got some new live casts that we are developing for things like image processing, which will kind of delve into things at slightly deeper levels. So actually what we've done with all of our new content is we've split it down into 3 basic levels. We've got basic, intermediate, and advanced. So hopefully what we can do there is we'll always have something going on for everybody, but it means that no matter when you join, there's always a good place to start. As we've heard from Gary and Cameron, they just want a good place to start, find their feet kind of thing. But then, of course, as you advance really quickly in your use of the telescopes and your knowledge of Slooh, then you'll also have some guiding hands for you there in a very structured way. So Paige and I are that's basically everything that we're doing at the moment. It's filling 12 hours a day to get all of this content together. We're really quite excited about it. It's also targeted to some of our educational projects as well, Slooh Classroom and Astrolab, which is launching with the new website. So anyway, I think that just about rounds up for tonight. Let's just hop over to the telescope, see if Canary 1's getting some wind blowing. Let's go down. Look at that. That was just as I said it. Look at that. We've got a mission which is affected by the wind. So you can see that the stars are not round, kind of teardrop shape. And even on some of them, you can see there's a little kind of zigzaggy line on them. And that's an absolute telltale of high winds at the observatory. But don't take my word for it. Hop down to the information panel on any of the telescope pages, hop down to the current conditions, and there we can say a wind gust of 8 miles an hour. When they're kind of when you see a wind gust above 6 in the Canary Islands, you'll usually find that if it's above 6, it can easily fluctuate between 6 and maybe even up to 15. The cut-off limit for the Canary 1 telescope is 12 miles an hour. That's when it auto closes. And if you were getting near those limits, then these symbols, they change their color. So if we got to above, let's say 75% humidity, that would turn yellow. If we went above 85, it would turn red. Same kind of thing with temperature and wind speeds as well. So, but anyway, let's take a look. So that was Robert H. That's a cave nebula. Let's take a look in Canary 2, whose mission is this. James K. Gosh, James K. You've been a member since 2005, but I don't think I've ever heard from you. So put your head above the parapet, James, and join in some of the discussions over at the discussion board. So here we've got relatively noisy image here of NGC New General Catalogue 5576, which is one of these galaxies. It's probably the brightest one here, but there's another galaxy out there, another galaxy here. See this figure of 8 here? That's 2 lumps of dust on the optics of the telescope. So those will soon be dealt with. But we can also see that this image is really noisy. Why is it noisy? Well, because we're still under moonlight, and we can see that by going over to the all-sky camera. And there we can see the bright moonlight in the sky. So as soon as the moon sets, you'll suddenly see the background to the images, go a lot darker. And there's the green tinge that it gives. It gives usually the Canary 3 deep sky telescope either a green or a blue colored tint on that. What's happening at Canary 4? Canary 4 can be affected by the wind as well. That's Goran doing something that we ask members not to do, really. Looks like Goran has set up a mission to Mars because Goran's been trying to track down the moons, Phobos and Deimos, of Mars. But the reason why we ask you not to set up coordinate missions to the moon or to the planets is that they need custom processing, because they're only going to appear like this, totally overexposed. And that in itself is not a problem, but what can happen is that can kind of not burn literally, but it can leave a residual image of this very bright object on the CCD, on the actual chip itself, which can carry over into the following mission and then spoil the next person's mission. Now, some of the telescopes and some of the CCD cameras are more or less prone to doing that, and maybe Goran has done what we do ask people if they've asked us if they can do it, and he may have set up another mission after it. In fact, he's had 4 consecutive missions. I'm just looking at this. We asked members to kind of at least schedule 1 non-mission like this. And in fact, I can see that his other missions were keeping Mars out of view over on the right, because probably that little dot or this little dot down here that I'm pointing at is probably Deimos, one of the moons of Mars. But anyway, so that's what's going on live in the telescopes. Chile, I think, I think we were set for more clouds tonight. Let's just take a look. Actually, that was something else that, yeah, so we've got light clouds and possible icing conditions forecast for tonight. So if you want to know the conditions or the forecast, hop over to that particular telescope. The all-sky camera is stuck at the moment. The techs down there are aware of that, but the weather forecast, we can take a look at that. Somebody the other day said, hey, listen, the forecast for Chile is clear. Are we going to open tonight? But actually, the forecast does change, just like it does on our local weather programs. Make sure you check several times during the day because it does tend to update, especially at this time of year in Chile. I mean, basically at Chile at this time of year, we're lucky if we get a couple of clear nights in a row. It's winter down there, it's heading into winter, and July and August are really our worst weather months down there. But we had an absolutely glorious summer with the Chile Observatory. We had some record runs of good weather, not only good weather, but superb conditions as well. But that's a shame, but that's what we have to live with. But equally, we've got the Canary Islands at a perfect time of year when, frankly, the observatory it's fairly rare for it to be offline. And if it is offline, it's usually because of a dust storm. And that's what we had last week. Anyway, that is it from me tonight. We'll end on that lovely, that's the Great Hercules cluster of M13. But don't forget, come back in 55 minutes time because Helen Avery is going to be back with her constellation stories, and she's looking at Delphinus tonight, that lovely celestial dolphin. It's absolutely glorious little constellation. It's one of the smallest constellations, but I think one of the most distinctive, and certainly I always enjoy looking at that one in the sky. But Helen's going to tell us all about it. What have we got in there? So we've got stars, globular clusters, and planetary nebulae. Okay, so lots to look forward to. That's in 55 minutes. Now, what have we got coming up next week? We've got a lunar eclipse, haven't we? The longest total lunar eclipse of the 21st century. And some people will be shouting out, saying, oh, there was a lunar eclipse in whatever year 2000, of course. But, there was, if you remember, all of that discussion about when the century starts. Does it start at 2000 or does it start at 2001? And there's all that kind of conversation going on. But anyway, all we've got to think of is that it is going to be the best total lunar eclipse, the longest total lunar eclipse that we have seen for some considerable time. I think since 2003, something like that. And it's going to be the best one, the longest one that we see for at least the next 99 years. So come along, join us. That's on August 27th, which is Friday. We've got lots of feeds coming in from around the world. But if you know anybody who's really South Africa, Africa, Middle East, Asia, or the Far East, who might be capturing this with their own telescope or even just camera, then put them in touch with me because we'd love to take a feed from them to broadcast around the world. We are going to be here for the entirety of that lunar eclipse, which is a good number of hours, but that's on Friday. I will be back next Sunday. Let me know what you want to talk about. We'll clear up that little nasty thing about Stellarium and this little right ascension glitch that we had this evening, and I'll post that in the discussion boards. But it's all from me tonight. Paul Cox with this latest episode of Practical Astronomy. I'll see you next week, and Helen will see us in 50 minutes' time. For me, though, it's good night and happy slewing. Bye now.
It's me again.
I have already found out what the problem was in that configuration for right ascension. So if you go to the configuration box, which is F2, and go to the tools, it is because we had decimal degrees set. Now, I think that's not a very good setting, and I'm going to report that actually to the developer of Stellarium, because really what we want there is we still want that sexagesimal in hours. We don't want it converted over to degrees for right ascension. But if you want to use this at the moment, then just untick use decimal degrees on the tools tab of the configuration window. So glad we sorted that out, although you couldn't see any of what I was talking about there, but there it is there. So configuration tool, and you can see here, if I select use decimal degrees, it gives us that one where it's changing right ascension to degrees, but we really should be hours. So unselect that, and it's giving us then the coordinates in the format that you need to enter to set up your coordinate mission, which is hours, minutes, seconds, and then degrees, minutes, and seconds for the declination. So anyway, now I really am going. Good night.